Could we just start by talking about the euro crisis? We've had another warning this time from the Spanish Premier that there's only a week to save the euro. It seems to go on, but...
Just look at this snivelling, arrogant, obnoxious, horrible, ignorant, unrepenting war criminal. It disgusts me just to see his face. Why I've even bothered to try and do this video, I don't know, but here we go.
Fundamentally, how serious is this, do you think, for Britain in particular?
It's fundamental for Europe and for Britain. I mean, I think the only thing that will save the single currency now is, in a sense, a kind of grand plan.
So just what is this grand plan, eh, Blair? Has it got anything to do with the destruction of democracy and the giving up of sovereignty so that you and your crony capitalists can create a United States of Europe, which has in fact been the plan all along, but if you talked about this, you were deemed a conspiracy theorist and to shut up and sit down?
In which Germany is prepared to commit its economy fully to the single currency. That means treating the debts of one as the debts of all, which is very hard for Germany to do.
Treating the debts of one as the debts of all will be very hard for any country to take, because it's not the people's debt. As with Iceland, 93% of the debt was found to be the banksters. Same in Europe. It's the derivatives trading that is causing the problem. They've had governments sign on to the derivatives debt of the zombie banks, which means that you and I are going to have to pay for their debts.
And it means those other countries in the Eurozone that need to reform the precise, credible, deliverable programs of change and reform so that Europe can regain its competitiveness, because otherwise it's quite unfair to ask Germany to pay. But that is what is necessary now.
This disgusting little smirk. This man is a complete disgrace. He knows exactly what he's doing. His dream of a United States of Europe is nearing fruition. And he knows because of the sweetheart deals that he's done, and all the backstabbing of the people that he's done in the past, and all the killing of the 1 million Iraqis which he caused and said he would do again. He knows that he's going to get a position of power. And just look at his smirk. This man is a disgusting creature.
German pain and pain for the others, and without that the euro is doomed.
I think it's really hard to see otherwise how you have countries whose economies are in a very different state of development operating within the single currency zone.
Did you hear that? You have to listen to that bit again.
I think it's really hard to see otherwise how you have countries whose economies are in a very different state of development operating within the single currency zone.
Eurosceptics and so-called conspiracy theorists have been telling the likes of Blair and the other establishment MPs that this is exactly the problem with the Eurozone, and this is why the Eurozone was doomed to fail from the moment it began. It's just incredible that after years and years of defending it, Blair, because he wants the United States of Europe president job in a few years' time, is coming out and saying that the only thing that can save the Eurozone now is a United States of Europe, because you can't have different economies at different stages competing under the same currency. Duh! And this guy was the Prime Minister? Don't you realise these people are following an agenda? He isn't this stupid. He knows what he's doing. He's an establishment man, okay? He's there not to work for you. He was never there to work for you. He was there to work for the establishment and to further their agenda. Is it dawning now? This guy is a traitor and a disgrace.
So that takes us to a hardcore, much more fused together Central Europe.
A United States of Europe.
And we're still on the outside of it.
Yeah, well, this is a big challenge for Britain, because the problem is whatever happens in the Eurozone now, I mean, if it collapses or if it stays, you are going to get major change in Europe. You will have a coming together of the economies of Europe in the so-called fiscal compact.
A United States of Europe.
You'll have a huge support for banking union within Europe, and you will have a political reconstruction of Europe.
A United States of Europe.
Because if you're going to exercise more control over the economies in a single currency zone, then people will want the political accountability that comes with that.
I'm not sure the people will want a United States of Europe, Scumbag Blair. I think the politicians and the likes of you want a United States of Europe.
So in any event, there's going to be a huge reconstruction of Europe going on.
Into the United States of Europe, run by technocrats and unelected bureaucrats.
Now for Britain, we've got to make sure we're part of that. We've got to be arguing the case for it and arguing it on our own terms, and that's tough for us.
So we need to argue as to whether we want to be run by unelected bureaucrats, unelected technocrats, or banksters that caused the problem in the first place.
Economically, you had to make an unambiguous case for Britain joining.
Yeah.
Politically, however, I was always in favour of keeping us very positive towards the project of European integration and able to join at any time we wanted to do so.
Positive about European integration and having Britain join whenever it wanted to. Whenever we want to give up England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, whenever we want to give that up and just become part of one country called the United States of Europe, Blair would have been there ready to slit our throats.
Now, I think the same is true today. I mean, the thing that's really important for our country
is that we wake up to your fraud and your treasonous behaviour when you were Prime Minister and your murdering of 1 million people, and never allow you back into politics regardless of what you might believe about yourself and about what your crony aides tell you how great and wonderful you are. You are a complete scumbag. That's what we need to do, Blair.
So in the long-term future of the world, that European project of integration is going to go ahead, like it or not.
That's democracy for you. This is going to happen whether you like it or not. Well, we'll see, Blair, shall we? We'll see how far you and your cronies get when you try to force this European integration onto us without a say, to be run by unelected bureaucrats, unelected technocrats and bankers who caused the issue in the first place. We are waking up. We've had enough of your drivel. Just look at your smirk as you say this. You think the game's up. You think you've won.
The European project's there because it's the rationale for Europe today is not peace anymore, it's power.
People do not want the euro and more European integration because of power. It's exactly the opposite to what you've just said, you muppet. Every time there's a vote or referendum, people vote no to Europe because it's more and more centralisation of power, it's more and more rule away from local governments and national governments to unelected bureaucrats. Unelected bureaucrats rule us now. 83% of our laws come out of Europe currently. What's it going to be like when this integration happens? We're not going to be able to do anything as a national country. Well, we won't be a national country if Blair has his way. Horrible man.
But where does democracy fit into this? Because
That's
people...
a good question.
Yeah.
Right.
Just look at his answer. He knows that there is no democracy in the future of an integrated Europe run by unelected bureaucrats, unelected technocrats, unelected bankers. Doesn't sound very fucking democratic, does it?
Because you can only have a democracy where you have a sort of polity, where everybody speaks pretty much the same language, understands each other, knows the leaders, watches them.
Right.
Very difficult to see that happening across 22 different languages and countries.
Have you not been listening, Andrew? He's just been telling you that it's going to be an undemocratic entity. There is no democracy in the future of an integrated Europe. Hello?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons why it's so important that Britain is still there and building alliances, arguing its case, is that I think in the politics of Europe we have something very specific and unique to contribute.
Blah, 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 blah. Come on, Blair, get on with the answer about there being no democracy in the future of Europe. Oh, you can't, because you know there isn't going to be any.
And when this political reconstruction happens, which it will, irrespective of what happens to the Europe,
I keep hammering this point, but it's very important. The change in Europe that he is talking about constantly, whether we like it or not, that's going to happen, is going to be Europe run by unelected bureaucrats, unelected technocrats. You won't be able to vote for them, you won't be able to remove them, you won't be able to hold them to account. And this is what Blair's telling us time and time again, that is definitely going to happen, whether you like it or not.
I think, as I say, the only way to preserve the euro is what I call a kind of grand plan. These incremental changes, whether it's on the Spanish banks or whatever else, they
Not
won't
enough.
work.
Not
you
enough.
need a fundamental plan that is put before people, where the thing is sorted out, where you clean up the balance sheets of the banks, where you organize how you're going to deal with the reform programs in these various countries. So that is the short-term challenge. Long-term, then, there is a reconstruction of Europe in which our countries, it's got to have its voice heard.
Oh, Tony, you're so naive. If you think that the European bureaucrats are going to listen to anything that somebody in the UK, or what was formerly known as the UK, has to say on the European subject, you are very much mistaken. But again, you know this. You're not stupid. That's the whole disappointing part about your entity. You're just a disgusting creature who has spent his life fighting against humanity, and you should be held for treason. You are a disgusting, despicable war criminal.
Story in The Independent today, all over the front page, alleging that it says, "Alas, the truth, how Blair misled cabinet over Iraq." And for new readers, start here. The allegation coming from Alistair Campbell's diaries is that you did not want the then Attorney General, Lord Goldsmith, to present both sides of the case that the war was legal and that it might not be legal to cabinet because that was too nuanced and it would be too dangerous in cabinet.
Yeah, and this is
true?
It's not true. And
so, who do we believe? A narcissistic, parasitical liar trying to cover his arse, or a narcissistic, parasitical liar trying to cover his arse?